Hi, Ian. Thanks for joining us for this interview today for Counterfire. This is Ian Hodson, who's the president of the Bakers Food and Allied Workers Union. And we're going to be discussing some issues around the Labour Party and the left, which we wanted to get some thoughts from Ian from. So I'll start by just asking, you were recently threatened with expulsion from the Labour Party. And I wanted to ask you on what basis the party was doing this and why you think that they are.
So in 2016, our General Secretary, Ronnie Draper at the time, got suspended. That was quickly overturned, but quite a number of people's suspension took a lot longer to be resolved. In 2017, we were approached on a picket line in Watford, and we were asked if we'd get involved with an organisation whose aims were to say to the Labour Party that anybody being suspended should be told what the suspension's for, that there should be a fair process for dealing with individuals, that they have the right to representation and the right to a hearing. And we took that to our executive. Our executive thought that that was in line with what we believe in natural justice. You know, we had a number of members who at that point had probably been suspended for about 12 months. Most people thought that the idea of the suspensions was just purely to stop them from being able to take part in the leadership election at that time. And that's what, you know, and the justification behind why we supported the Labour Against Witch Hunt campaign at that time. Since then, obviously, we haven't actually been involved with Labour Against the Witch Hunt. We haven't been involved since 2017. I was named on the website as a sponsor, but we've never sponsored the organisation. That wasn't true. But obviously, my name appeared on there, and I watched an interview actually with Mark Wadsworth, and it was Mark Wadsworth that decided, because of the role that I'd played in standing up and demanding justice for people who were being unfairly suspended, he made me a patron of the campaign in 2017, and that's how my name became to be put on there. And I only found that out when I watched an interview with him on Chris Williamson the other week after he'd won his case in court for the allegations that had been made against him.
Okay. And am I right in understanding that the Labour Party have kind of recently proscribed Labour Against the Witch Hunt and are now kind of retrospectively suspending or threatening expulsion of members who have at some point supported these organisations? Or
yeah. I mean, that's what they've done. I think the idea is that, you know, they can use this as justification for getting rid of anybody that they feel does not support the current leadership, and obviously who maybe would put challenges in to seats that they want to secure in constituencies, in conferences, because they want to control all the levers of power within the party. And this is one of the best ways probably that they're able to achieve that, by just saying, well, we're going to prescribe organisations that you know, we're quite legitimate, you know, to be part of, quite legitimate aims and objectives, but, you know, we've decided we're going to prescribe them and then we're going to backdate it.
Yeah, it sounds ridiculous. I mean, it looks to me like this is just a continuation of a witch hunt against the left in the Labour Party, which, you know, Keir Starmer has seemed to escalate throughout his leadership, despite what he kind of pledged during the leadership campaign. And, you know, we've seen the suspension of Jeremy Corbyn and kind of waves of these expulsions and suspensions of people. But it seems of particular significance that you and other trade unionists have been targeted in this way. And I mean, do you think that there's an issue that Starmer has with the organised labour movement? Is there a kind of schism growing there?
I think there's certainly the people around him have an issue with organised labour. I think they want to turn, and they have this idea that they can turn the Labour Party into some sort of equivalent of the Democrat Party over in the States, where big business comes in and funds it. In fact, I saw them advertising for a fundraiser. They were offering £38,000. Funnily enough, at the same time, they've announced the sacking of a number of workers that they've been employed in their offices. But I suppose their aim is, if there is the replacement of trade union money, then obviously that means they won't have to meet with trade unions, won't have to meet the demands of trade unions, and will be able to compete with the Conservatives from a financial point of view. But that isn't what the aim of the Labour Party is supposed to be about. The aim of the Labour Party was created, and our trade union was a fundamental part of the creation of the Labour Party. We levied our members in 1902 to put forward 100 organisers to build the Labour Party, so the working class communities up and down this country could have a voice in Parliament. Not so it could be turned into a boss's party, but so it would represent the interests of working class communities, with trade unions, and build the Labour movement in Westminster, as well as out in our communities.
I think that's absolutely right. And your union, the BFAWU, was recently considering disaffiliation from the Labour Party. Can I ask you, what do your members think about this, and what do you think? Do you think that's the right thing to do? What's the kind of thinking behind that?
But at the end of the day, we're a democratic trade union. We carried out a survey, and there was a slight, favourable wish of our members to disaffiliate. At that particular time, the feeling was that it wasn't substantial. So we would wait, we would try and meet with the Labour Party to resolve the issues and the difficulties. Following our conference, we intended to meet with the Labour Party, and we met with their trade union liaison. We didn't meet them, we spoke to them on the phone. And a number of suggestions were put forward to meet with both myself, our General Secretary, Sarah Woolley, some of our executive, and some of our branch secretaries. They was quite shocked because we were talking about branch secretaries and not officials, but like we explained to them, we're based in the workplace. We're not a trade union that has paid officials to do those types of jobs. We are a grassroots organisation, and we would be bringing working people to those meetings. Those meetings never got set up, despite promises. The recalls that they told us they were going to make to us never happened. And obviously, following the failure then to build on their suggestions, we then got made aware that their intention was actually to look at expelling me, which has caused absolute ructions. Our executive are very disappointed. So obviously, we had Ronnie suspended. Now we've got a threat of expulsion. Since the threat of expulsion, of course, there's been all of the smears that's gone alongside that. Because at no time has anybody in the Labour Party told me that I'm being investigated for anti-Semitism, but yet some senior people within the Labour Party leadership have suggested that I am involved in anti-Semitism, which is completely untrue. Our members don't appreciate that. They don't appreciate the smearing. And, many of them have decided themselves they're going to withdraw from being members of the Labour Party. We will be holding our conference on the 28th of September. We will be making a decision democratically on whether or not we, as a founding member of the Labour Party, will remain affiliated to the organisation.
As well as this kind of attack that Keir Starmer is leading against the left and the Labour movement within the Labour Party, it seems that we are in a moment of absolute crisis in the government, where the government has presided over this absolutely shambolic handling of the pandemic and has now more recently, more overtly attacked workers with, the national insurance hike, with cuts universal credit. And we've seen an uptick in kind of trade union activity in the last year where, bosses have been trying to use fire and rehire and the rest of it. And it seems that during all of this, Starmer's been focused on attacking the left rather than holding the government to account. So how do you think that the Labour movement can respond to that? I mean, should the Labour movement be trying to push Keir Starmer to doing his job as the opposition, or, as you say, should this be done outside the party? Is there a case for disaffiliating from the party altogether, etc.? Do you think?
From our perspective, what's very clear is the Labour Party hasn't won an election since 2005. It's not that it didn't win in 2019. We haven't won an election since 2005. The current Labour leadership think by aping the successes of 1997 somehow that will reconnect with people up and down the country. What they're failing to grasp is the reason why they lost power, and that was the last election victory, is because they let people down in those communities. They didn't bring about the change that everybody hoped for and everybody was excited about in 1997. They maintained the status quo. They're the ones that lost trust. And to try and think you can go back to that, today, in 2021, is a huge mistake. And I think what the Labour movement has to do, and I agree with the approach that Sharon Graham says, you have to build in the workplace, which is what we've been trying to do. We've been trying to build in workplaces. We've been trying to build into new areas of the economy through organising fast food workers, through organising hospitality workers. I believe, the way that we change the lives of people in our communities is to organise. We organise and join trade unions, because we can't wait for politicians, because politicians don't deliver. They don't deliver for us unless we force them to deliver. And I think, from my perspective and the perspective of those people that I work with, our interests are best served by working collectively to build the movement. That's our movement, not the Labour Party, but the trade union movement, because that offers the best hope and opportunity to defeat what's happening in our economy with the burden of this COVID crisis being placed on some of the most lowest paid workers that have been serving us on the front line in healthcare. The refuse workers, the bus drivers, the supermarket workers, the bakers, the food manufacturers, they're the ones who served on our front line. And yet, the bankers in this country won't pay anywhere near, the taxes that the people who have served us on the front line will be expected to pay. They're not facing the same increases in council tax. They're not going to be hit by the increase in energy prices that's going to absolutely soar as we go into the next winter months. So our best bet and our best opportunity to defend ourselves is to join the trade union and to organise and collectively demand what we're entitled, because we saw Theresa Coffey, didn't we, the other day, saying people should work more hours. I mean, that's 9 hours addition a week to replace the £21 that they're going to have to do, from the universal credit cut. Well, we shouldn't be reliant on benefits, should we? We should be going to work and earning enough money that we don't have to claim benefits. It's the employer that should have to go out and fill in the forms to demonstrate they're doing the right things by their employees. We create the profits and we should have a share of them. And I think, the sooner we get to a position of demanding £15 an hour as a minimum for all workers, the sooner, we can have a society which is more equal, more fair, and people are treated with decency and respect that we're all entitled to and we all deserve as a birthright.
Really. Well, I just have one more question, which I think some of which you might have answered already. But what do you think is the kind of next step for the left? How should the left respond to these kind of attacks against it within the Labour Party? And this kind of build solidarity with workers who are striking or who are facing the brunt of this government's cut. and I mean the left both within and outside the Labour Party. Yeah.
I mean, what I'm seeing is terrible. I mean, I'm seeing 93 COVID heroes in Barnet potentially losing their jobs. I'm seeing, a recently elected, national president of Unison facing dismissal. Both Labour councils, by the way, both. This is Labour councils working, threatening trade union representatives. I think what we have to recognise is that the Labour Party is not currently representing our interests, and it needs to be held to account. But most importantly, we have to recognise that our strength comes from solidarity. It's supporting one another in the trade union movement. When our sister trade unions are in trouble, we go down there and we support them, and we send messages of solidarity, and we stand with them in their fight, because their fight is our fight. And I think that's the critical part. I mean, the Labour Party, like I say, hasn't won an election since 2005. And no matter how much it tries to dress that up as somebody else's fault, the reality is it's been the people in the party that have made the wrong decisions, and put forward the wrong ideas and haven't connected. The best opportunity we ever had was 2017. And we couldn't even manage to get that right because of the factionalism inside the Labour Party that made sure that opportunity was lost. I mean, so we are best placed to defend ourselves. We are best placed to organise, but we've got to take that messages into workplaces, take it into our communities, stand together and recognise our strength. It's always when we realise solidarity is how we win.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.